A fortune so vast it could change the fate of nations, yet it vanished without a trace. Where did Hitler's lost gold go? Billions of dollars worth of stolen wealth, hidden in vaults, smuggled across borders, buried deep in the mountains, yet, decades later, much of it remains unaccounted for. The mystery of the lost Nazi gold has captivated historians, treasure hunters, intelligence agencies, and conspiracy theorists alike. Did it disappear beneath the ruins of Berlin, locked away in a secret Swiss bank account? Or was it smuggled out of Europe to fund secret operations after the war? The Nazis' rise to power was built on a foundation of economic strategy and ruthless plundering. Hitler and his top officials orchestrated one of the largest wealth confiscation schemes in modern history, seizing gold from central banks, private citizens, and war-torn nations. This was not just a matter of war spoils, it was a carefully calculated system designed to funnel resources into the Nazi war machine. Entire national treasuries were looted, Jewish families were stripped of their assets, and artwork worth billions disappeared into underground storage facilities. As World War II raged on, the Reichsbank, Germany's central bank, became a hub for processing stolen gold and wealth, ensuring that the Nazi war effort remained funded. By the time the war reached its final days, Nazi leaders knew their empire was collapsing. The Allies were closing in from all sides, and the fate of the Third Reich was sealed. But one thing remained unclear: what happened to the immense fortune the Nazis had accumulated? Did high-ranking officers hide it before the fall of Berlin? Did secret organizations carry it away in the chaos of war? And if it was never recovered, where could it be now? The disappearance of Hitler's gold remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of World War II. Intelligence agencies from multiple countries have searched for it, declassified documents have hinted at hidden vaults, and treasure hunters have spent their lives following clues that lead to dead ends. Some believe that underground tunnels and lakes still conceal vast amounts of stolen treasure. Others suspect that powerful banking institutions protected Nazi gold after the war, keeping it hidden in secret accounts. The significance of this missing fortune goes beyond just a historical mystery. The question of Nazi gold has led to decades of lawsuits, international disputes, and conspiracy theories that persist to this day. Governments have conducted investigations into Swiss banks accused of laundering stolen Nazi wealth, and Holocaust survivors and their families have fought to reclaim assets that were lost during the war. If this gold were to be found today, it could lead to one of the largest financial redistributions in history. This story is not just about lost treasure. It's about power, deception, and the remnants of a dark past that continue to shape the world. In the chapters ahead, we will uncover how the Nazis stole their wealth, explore the different theories of where it might have gone, and examine the modern-day treasure hunts that are still searching for answers. The Reichsbank vaults were emptied before Berlin fell, but where did that wealth go? What role did secretive organizations and governments play in hiding or recovering it? Could some of it still be buried deep beneath the earth, waiting to be discovered? Join us as we unravel the mystery of Hitler's lost gold and attempt to uncover the truth behind the greatest vanished fortune of the 20th century. The Nazi gold empire, Hitler's mysterious fortune. and how the Nazis built their wealth. When Adolf Hitler rose to power, his vision for Nazi Germany required more than just military strength. It needed wealth. Not just to fund weapons and warfare, but to create an empire that could sustain itself through years of global conflict. From the very beginning, the Nazi regime understood that financial power was just as crucial as military dominance. This is why one of the earliest strategies of the Third Reich was built around mass confiscation, plundering, and outright theft. The Nazis didn't just seize power politically, they seized wealth. Jewish families, businesses, and entire communities were stripped of their property, bank accounts, and valuables. The infamous Nuremberg laws of 1935 not only laid the groundwork for persecution but also set the stage for large-scale asset confiscation. By 1938, Jewish bank accounts in Germany were frozen, and the Nazis had begun systematically taking gold, jewelry, and art from Jewish citizens, eventually amounting to tens of billions in today's money. But the looting didn't stop within Germany's borders. As Nazi forces expanded across Europe, they plundered entire national treasuries. When Germany invaded Austria in 1938, it seized the Austrian central bank's gold reserves within hours. The same tactic was repeated in Czechoslovakia, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. By the time the Nazis had occupied Western Europe, they had accumulated over $600 million in gold, an amount that would be worth over $9 billion today when adjusted for inflation. One of the most striking cases of this financial plundering was France. In 1940, after the fall of Paris, the Nazis looted the Banque de France, removing nearly 2,400 metric tons of gold. Much of this was transported to Germany, Switzerland, and even North Africa to finance the German war effort. In Poland, the gold reserves of the Narodowy Bank Polski were smuggled out of the country just before the German invasion, but what remained was taken by the Nazis. The plundering extended to cultural and historical artifacts, with priceless art stolen from museums, private collections, and cathedrals. While gold and treasures were physically transported, a more complex financial system ensured the wealth remained accessible. Switzerland played a key role in laundering Nazi gold. Through the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, and several Swiss private banks, the Nazis were able to deposit and trade stolen gold, disguising its origins. The Swiss National Bank became a major financial intermediary, receiving Nazi gold in exchange for Swiss francs, which were then used to purchase war supplies. Declassified documents later revealed that Swiss institutions accepted more than $400 million worth of looted gold between 1939 and 1945. The financial network extended beyond just Switzerland. Portugal, Spain, and Sweden also played roles in processing Nazi gold through neutral banking systems, ensuring that stolen assets could be laundered and used without direct links to the German Reich. This allowed the Nazis to continue financing their war effort even as global economic sanctions were imposed. Where was the gold stored? To manage its massive reserves of stolen gold, the Nazi regime developed a network of secret storage locations. The Reichsbank in Berlin, Germany's central bank, was the primary holding facility. Vaults deep below the Reichsbank's headquarters were filled with bars of stolen gold, precious metals, and confiscated valuables. However, as the war turned against Germany, it became clear that Berlin was no longer a safe location for these treasures. Anticipating potential Allied bombing raids and a possible invasion, the Nazi leadership began moving gold out of Berlin to more secure locations. One of the most infamous locations was Mersburg, a heavily fortified site in central Germany. Gold, foreign currency, and rare artifacts were hidden in underground bunkers, protected by elite SS guards. Another crucial site was Lake Toplitz, deep in the Austrian Alps. The Nazis, fearing complete defeat, began hiding wealth in the remote, inaccessible lake. Years after the war, divers have recovered Nazi documents, counterfeit British pounds, and even rumored gold crates from the lake's depths. Some believe that much more remains hidden beneath the water, waiting to be discovered. In Thuringia, an entire network of underground tunnels was converted into storage facilities. The region was already home to Nazi weapons factories and secret military projects, making it an ideal location to store valuables away from Allied reach. Reports suggest that trucks carrying gold, art, and banknotes vanished into these tunnels in the final months of the war, never to be found again. One of the most controversial aspects of the Nazi gold mystery is the role of Swiss banks. Even as physical gold was transported to underground bunkers and secret storage locations, a significant portion of the stolen wealth remained in Swiss financial institutions. Secret Nazi accounts in Swiss banks ensured that funds could be accessed discreetly, even if Germany fell. Decades later, lawsuits and declassified records have revealed that some of these accounts remained untouched, raising suspicions that part of Hitler's fortune may still be hidden in modern banking systems. Despite the Allied forces recovering some of the looted gold after the war, a significant portion remains missing to this day. Could it still be buried beneath the mountains? Locked away in secret bank accounts? Or was it quietly distributed among post-war intelligence operations, never to be seen again? The mystery deepens as we explore how Hitler's gold vanished without a trace. The Vanishing Act, how Hitler's gold disappeared. The collapse of Nazi Germany and the last gold movement. As the Third Reich crumbled in 1945, the Nazi leadership knew that the war was lost. The Allies were closing in on Berlin from all sides, and Hitler himself had retreated into his fortified bunker, issuing his final orders. But even as the Nazi regime faced its imminent downfall, one question remained unanswered: what would happen to the immense wealth that had been looted over the years? The Nazis had amassed a fortune in gold, stolen from occupied nations, confiscated from Jewish families, and plundered from banks across Europe. That gold was the lifeblood of the Nazi war machine, and in those final days, its fate became one of the biggest mysteries of World War II. With Soviet troops advancing from the east and American forces pushing in from the west, Hitler gave his last known directive regarding the Reichsbank's reserves. His order was simple: the wealth of Nazi Germany should never fall into enemy hands. Some reports suggest that he instructed his top officials to relocate the gold, while others believe he may have ordered it to be destroyed. But what happened next remains unclear. SS officers, acting under these last-minute directives, scrambled to move the remaining Nazi treasure. They transported crates of gold bars, foreign currency, and looted artifacts to secret locations, using underground tunnels, lakes, and abandoned mineshafts as hiding spots. Witnesses reported seeing convoys of trucks and heavily guarded trains leaving Berlin, heading toward remote areas in Austria and southern Germany. Some of these shipments were later discovered by Allied forces, but many simply vanished. One of the last recorded movements of Nazi gold involved a convoy heading toward Mersburg, a secret storage site in central Germany. This location was believed to hold vast amounts of the Reich's remaining reserves. However, as American forces advanced, the SS officers overseeing the operation destroyed all documentation related to the transport. The gold itself was never officially recovered, leading to speculation that it was either hidden or smuggled out of Europe. Another key location in the disappearance of Nazi gold was the Thuringian Forest, where SS officers were reported to have buried crates filled with treasure. After the war, US forces searched the area extensively, recovering some Nazi assets, but a significant portion of the treasure was never found. Some believe that local villagers were forced to assist in burying the gold before the SS officers executed them to ensure secrecy. As Berlin burned and Hitler took his own life, much of the Nazi wealth had already vanished. Some of it was confiscated by the Soviets, some was seized by the Allies, but an estimated $4 to $5 billion worth of Nazi gold remains missing to this day. The mysterious gold train of Wałbrzych. Of all the legends surrounding lost Nazi treasure, few have captured public imagination like the story of the Wałbrzych Gold Train. According to multiple reports, as the Red Army approached Poland in the final days of the war, the Nazis allegedly loaded a train with gold, artwork, and other valuables and sent it toward the mountains of Lower Silesia. Somewhere along the way, the train disappeared, supposedly hidden in a secret underground tunnel beneath the Polish countryside. For decades, rumors circulated that the train was buried in an abandoned railway tunnel near the town of Wałbrzych. Local villagers passed down stories of SS officers executing workers who had helped conceal the treasure, ensuring the location remained a secret. Some even claimed that the tunnel was booby-trapped with explosives, designed to keep intruders away. In 2015, two treasure hunters, Piotr Kobra and Andreas Richter, announced that they had found evidence of the legendary train using ground-penetrating radar. Their claims caused an international frenzy, with media outlets across the world reporting on the potential discovery of one of the largest hidden treasures in history. But just as excitement reached its peak, the Polish government stepped in. Officials dismissed the findings, stating that there was no evidence of a hidden train. Despite this, many believe that Polish authorities deliberately covered up the discovery to prevent an uncontrolled rush of treasure hunters from excavating the site. Some even suspect that the Polish government secretly recovered the train's contents before publicly denying its existence. Satellite images and radar scans continue to fuel speculation that the train, or at least remnants of its cargo, still exists beneath the hills of Wałbrzych. To this day, private expeditions and underground searches continue, with some treasure hunters convinced that the gold train is real and waiting to be uncovered. Case study: the missing Swiss bank deposit. While much of the missing Nazi gold was hidden or transported in the chaos of war, a significant portion was never physically moved at all. It simply vanished into the world of international banking. Swiss banks, known for their strict secrecy laws, played a crucial role in helping Nazi Germany launder its wealth during the war. The Swiss National Bank and various private institutions accepted massive deposits of looted gold from the Nazi regime. These transactions were often disguised as financial exchanges, with Swiss banks purchasing Nazi gold in return for liquid assets that Germany could use to fund its war machine. Declassified records later revealed that Swiss banks received over $400 million in Nazi gold, much of which was melted down to remove identifying marks before being reintroduced into the global financial system. After the war, efforts were made to recover these deposits, but Swiss banks resisted scrutiny. They cited client confidentiality laws and refused to disclose account details. Many Holocaust survivors and their families, who had lost their assets during the war, attempted to reclaim stolen funds, but Swiss banks repeatedly denied having any Nazi-linked accounts. In 1997, mounting pressure from international organizations and newly declassified wartime documents forced Swiss banks to admit their role in holding Nazi assets. The revelation led to one of the largest financial settlements in history, with Swiss institutions agreeing to pay $1.25 billion to Holocaust survivors. Despite this settlement, many believe that significant amounts of Nazi gold remain hidden in untraceable Swiss accounts. Some conspiracy theories suggest that after the war, portions of this wealth were quietly transferred to South America, where former Nazi officials had fled. Others believe that a portion of Hitler's personal fortune was funneled through Swiss banks and still remains untouched in hidden accounts under false names. The Swiss banking system remains one of the most secretive in the world, and despite past disclosures, there may still be classified documents that could reveal the full extent of Nazi financial dealings. Some historians argue that if Swiss banks were fully transparent, we might finally uncover the fate of billions in missing gold. Where did Hitler's gold go? The disappearance of Hitler's gold is one of the most perplexing financial mysteries in modern history. Some of it was undoubtedly recovered by the Allies, some was hidden in underground tunnels, and some was laundered through banks that refused to disclose their wartime transactions. But a vast amount remains unaccounted for. Could it still be buried beneath the forests of Germany and Austria? Is it locked away in secret Swiss bank accounts, hidden under false identities? Or was it smuggled to South America, where Nazi officials used it to establish new lives in Argentina, Brazil, and Chile? The search for Hitler's lost fortune is far from over. Treasure hunters, historians, and intelligence agencies continue to piece together clues, hoping to unravel what happened to one of the greatest missing treasures of all time. The next step in solving this mystery lies in examining the secret post-war operations that sought to recover the lost gold and the many theories that suggest it may still be out there, waiting to be found. Operation Safe Haven, the US and UK's secret hunt for Nazi gold, the secret Allied mission to retrieve Nazi wealth. As World War II drew to a close, the Allies were not only focused on defeating Nazi Germany but also on preventing a financial escape route for high-ranking Nazi officials. Intelligence reports indicated that massive amounts of gold, cash, and stolen assets had been moved out of Germany before the Reich collapsed. If these funds were not located and seized, the fear was that fleeing Nazi leaders could use them to rebuild a new fascist movement elsewhere. In response, the United States launched Operation Safe Haven, a secret mission between 1944 and 1946 aimed at tracking, identifying, and recovering Nazi financial assets. This was not just about gold and currency, it included looted art, confiscated bank accounts, and even ownership stakes in foreign businesses. The US government, with support from Britain and France, sought to uncover where Nazi wealth had been hidden, and more importantly, prevent it from being used to support post-war Nazi networks. During this operation, the Allies identified hidden Nazi gold caches in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. Some were recovered in abandoned vaults, while others were traced to private accounts in neutral countries. In 1945, American forces discovered a stash of Nazi gold at the Merkers salt mine in Germany, estimated to be worth $520 million at the time. Gold bars, jewels, and artwork stolen from Jewish families and occupied countries were stacked in underground chambers, waiting to be smuggled out before the Reich fell. However, the Merkers discovery was only a fraction of the total amount suspected to be missing. According to Allied intelligence, at least $4 to $5 billion in Nazi assets remained unaccounted for, most of which had already disappeared into the global banking system. One of the biggest obstacles in recovering stolen wealth was Switzerland's reluctance to cooperate. Despite being officially neutral during the war, Swiss banks had accepted millions in gold from Nazi Germany, much of which was later revealed to have been plundered from occupied nations and Holocaust victims. In the aftermath of the war, Swiss officials resisted Allied attempts to recover these assets, citing their banking secrecy laws. To make matters worse, the Soviet Union was also seizing gold wherever it advanced, often without sharing information with the Western Allies. When Soviet troops captured Berlin, they raided the Reichsbank's remaining vaults, confiscating unknown amounts of Nazi gold and wealth. Documents later suggested that this gold was transferred to Moscow, but to this day, the Kremlin has never fully disclosed what was taken or where it ended up. By the time Operation Safe Haven ended in 1946, the Allies had recovered some assets, but huge sums of Nazi gold had already disappeared into private hands, offshore accounts, and secretive financial institutions. The true extent of the missing wealth remains one of the greatest financial mysteries of the 20th century. Did the Vatican help smuggle Nazi gold? One of the most controversial theories surrounding missing Nazi gold involves the Vatican and its alleged role in post-war Nazi escape routes. Known as the rat lines, these secret corridors helped high-ranking Nazi officials flee to South America after Germany's defeat. Countries like Argentina, Chile, and Brazil became sanctuaries for former SS officers, many of whom managed to rebuild their lives using hidden Nazi funds. Declassified CIA files from the 1990s suggest that the Vatican played a role in secretly moving Nazi assets, possibly helping transfer stolen gold from Europe to Argentina. According to some accounts, Vatican officials were aware of Nazi leaders using the church's network to escape and may have facilitated financial transactions to support their resettlement. A particularly shocking claim emerged in 1947, when reports surfaced that the Franciscan order had allegedly helped smuggle gold stolen from Jews and other victims. The gold, according to some intelligence sources, was transported through Vatican-linked financial institutions before being transferred to banks in Argentina. The connection between Nazi gold and the Vatican remains one of the most disputed aspects of post-war financial history. While the Vatican has repeatedly denied involvement, historians point to the fact that many former Nazis, including Adolf Eichmann and Joseph Mengele, successfully fled to Argentina with little financial difficulty. Some believe they were funded by secret Nazi accounts, which may have been facilitated through Vatican channels. There is also evidence that Swiss banks may have acted as intermediaries, funneling gold from the Vatican to South America. This theory gained traction after the Swiss banking scandals of the 1990s, when previously hidden Nazi accounts were exposed. If these accounts remained active for decades, could some of Hitler's lost fortunes still be sitting in Swiss-controlled offshore accounts today? Where did the gold really go? Despite the Allied efforts to recover Nazi assets, vast amounts of wealth vanished into unknown locations, leading to speculation that it was used in secret Cold War operations. The geopolitical landscape changed rapidly after World War II, with former Nazi officials becoming valuable assets for both the US and the Soviet Union in intelligence operations. Some believe that stolen Nazi gold helped fund black ops, espionage, and secret government projects. One theory suggests that portions of Nazi wealth were funneled into the early operations of the CIA. After the war, Operation Paperclip brought former Nazi scientists and intelligence officers to the United States to work on classified projects. Some researchers argue that money from hidden Nazi bank accounts was secretly used to finance these programs, ensuring that former SS officials and scientists had access to resources. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union was accused of using Nazi gold to fund its own intelligence activities. Some declassified reports indicate that Soviet authorities had access to captured German financial records, which allowed them to track down and seize hidden Nazi accounts in Eastern Europe. But instead of returning the stolen wealth, Soviet officials redirected the funds into their war recovery efforts and KGB operations. In later decades, evidence of missing Nazi gold continued to surface in unexpected places. In the 1960s, a secret US intelligence report suggested that Nazi assets were still being moved through international financial networks, often under false corporate identities. Some believe that high-ranking former Nazis, living in exile, continued to access these hidden funds well into the 1980s. One of the most shocking discoveries came in the 1990s, when Swiss banks were forced to admit that they had been holding onto unclaimed Nazi-era accounts for decades. The resulting lawsuits led to a $1.25 billion settlement, but many questions remained. If some Nazi accounts were still intact half a century later, could there be more hidden Nazi wealth in private banks today? The unsolved mystery of Hitler's lost gold. Operation Safehaven was one of the most ambitious financial recovery efforts in history, yet it only scratched the surface of the billions of dollars worth of stolen Nazi assets. Despite the post-war seizures, a massive fortune remains missing, and its whereabouts continue to fuel investigations and speculation. The involvement of Swiss banks, the Vatican, Cold War intelligence agencies, and secret escape networks has turned Hitler's lost gold into a global conspiracy spanning decades. Some researchers believe that a significant portion of this treasure is still hidden, buried in underground vaults, locked away in private bank accounts, or dispersed among secretive organizations that benefited from the post-war chaos. What is clear is that the gold never truly disappeared. It was simply redistributed into unknown hands. Whether those hands belonged to former Nazis, intelligence agencies, or private banking institutions remains one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. Could the missing gold still be found? If so, who would claim it? As we continue to investigate, more shocking details emerge about modern-day treasure hunts, secret discoveries, and the ongoing search for Hitler's lost fortune. Top theories on where the gold is today. Theory 1. Buried in the Austrian Alps. As the Third Reich collapsed in 1945, SS officers were given direct orders to hide, transport, or destroy Nazi wealth to prevent it from falling into Allied hands. For decades, eyewitness accounts have surfaced claiming that before surrendering, SS troops buried crates of gold in the remote mountains of Austria. Some reports suggest that local villagers, forced to help conceal the treasure, were later executed to keep the location secret. One of the most famous locations linked to hidden Nazi treasure is the Altaussee salt mine. During the war, this underground complex was transformed into a massive storage facility for looted Nazi gold, artwork, and stolen cultural artifacts. As the war drew to an end, high-ranking Nazi officials attempted to destroy the mine to prevent the treasures from being recovered. Explosives were placed throughout the tunnels, but local miners sabotaged the operation, saving an estimated $100 billion worth of stolen wealth. Despite this monumental recovery, many believe that more treasure remains hidden within the labyrinth of underground tunnels throughout Austria. One of the most persistent theories involves Lake Toplitz, a deep alpine lake that the Nazis used for weapons testing and secret military projects. In the years following the war, divers discovered Nazi documents, counterfeit British pounds, and remnants of secret operations, but no large gold reserves have been found, at least not officially. Treasure hunters continue to search the Austrian Alps, convinced that hidden vaults filled with Nazi gold remain undiscovered. Some experts believe that maps or records detailing the exact locations may still exist, waiting to be uncovered in forgotten archives or declassified intelligence files. Theory 2. Secret Nazi U-boat submarines to Argentina. Another theory suggests that rather than burying the gold in Europe, the Nazis smuggled vast amounts of stolen wealth out of Germany by sea. Some historians argue that U-boats were used to transport Nazi gold to South America, specifically to Argentina, which had a long history of providing sanctuary to former Nazis. The idea of Nazi U-boats carrying treasure gained credibility when a sunken German submarine was discovered off the coast of Argentina in 2017. The submarine, identified as U-3523, was a long-range model capable of making the journey from Europe to South America without needing to surface. While no treasure was found on board, the discovery reignited speculation that other U-boats could have successfully carried gold, jewels, and stolen artwork to Argentina. Argentina's Juan Perón, who led the country during and after the war, was known for sympathizing with the Nazis. Historical records reveal that Perón welcomed fleeing SS officers and high-ranking German officials, some of whom arrived with large amounts of wealth. This has led to theories that portions of Hitler's missing fortune were deposited into Argentine banks or hidden in rural estates controlled by former Nazi officers. A 2015 discovery in Buenos Aires further fueled the theory. A hidden vault containing Nazi artifacts, rare gold coins, and World War II-era documents was found behind a secret wall in a private residence. While no large sums of gold were recovered, the discovery proved that Nazis had indeed smuggled valuables to Argentina, raising questions about whether more treasure is still hidden in the country. To this day, investigators continue searching the jungles and countryside of Argentina, hoping to uncover more evidence that Nazi gold successfully made its way across the Atlantic. Theory 3. The CIA-KGB conspiracy. As World War II ended, the world transitioned into the Cold War, a new battle for global influence between the United States and the Soviet Union. Some researchers believe that Nazi gold played a secret role in financing Cold War intelligence operations, with portions of the missing wealth being absorbed into CIA and KGB activities. Declassified CIA documents from the 1960s suggest that after the war, US intelligence was aware of hidden Nazi bank accounts and missing gold reserves. Some conspiracy theorists argue that instead of recovering and returning these assets, the CIA used Nazi gold to fund covert operations, including espionage, political destabilization, and secret military projects. On the Soviet side, the Red Army looted massive amounts of gold and wealth from Germany, including what remained of the Reichsbank's reserves. In 1945, as Soviet troops entered Berlin, they reportedly seized tons of Nazi gold, transferring it back to Moscow. While official Soviet records claimed that this wealth was used for war reparations, some believe that portions of it were funneled into KGB Black Ops projects. One compelling case study involves the 1945 Soviet looting of German banks. When Soviet forces entered Berlin, they raided Deutsche Bank, private vaults, and Nazi storage sites, allegedly seizing gold, jewels, and foreign currency. Some of these assets were never formally accounted for, leading to speculation that the Soviets used them to finance secret intelligence programs well into the Cold War. The idea that Nazi gold was repurposed for Cold War activities remains one of the most controversial and classified aspects of this mystery. Could former Nazi officers have struck secret deals with US or Soviet intelligence agencies in exchange for wealth and protection? Some historians believe that until all classified files are released, the true extent of Cold War involvement in the missing Nazi fortune will never be fully understood. Theory 4. Swiss banks still holding stolen Nazi gold. While some believe that Nazi gold was smuggled out of Europe, others argue that it never left the banking system at all. Instead, it remains hidden within secretive Swiss bank accounts. Switzerland played a crucial role in laundering Nazi gold during the war, with its banks accepting millions in looted assets in exchange for financial services. In 1997, a massive scandal erupted when evidence surfaced showing that Swiss banks had knowingly held onto Nazi-era accounts for decades, refusing to return assets to rightful owners. Under intense international pressure, Swiss banks finally agreed to a $1.25 billion settlement, but many researchers believe this was only a small fraction of the total missing wealth. Multiple lawsuits have since attempted to force Swiss banks to disclose additional hidden accounts, but the country's strict banking secrecy laws have made full transparency impossible. Some investigators believe that modern-day Swiss banks may still be holding Nazi assets under false corporate identities or buried within offshore subsidiaries. Even beyond Switzerland, other European banks have been accused of concealing Nazi-linked deposits. In recent years, traces of Nazi gold have reportedly turned up in Belgian and Portuguese financial institutions, raising concerns that a larger network of hidden Nazi wealth may still exist. The 1997 scandal was just the tip of the iceberg, and some historians argue that the full extent of Swiss banking involvement in Nazi finance has never been truly revealed. Could unclaimed Nazi accounts still be sitting in vaults, untouched since the 1940s? Some believe that if complete financial records from the era were ever fully exposed, we might finally learn the true fate of Hitler's lost fortune. The search for Hitler's lost gold continues decades after the fall of the Third Reich. Billions of dollars worth of Nazi gold remains unaccounted for. From buried treasure in the Austrian Alps to sunken Nazi submarines off the coast of Argentina, from Cold War intelligence operations to secret Swiss bank accounts, the fate of Hitler's lost fortune remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Theories continue to evolve as new discoveries, declassified intelligence files, and modern treasure hunts uncover additional clues. Some believe that one day, a major breakthrough will reveal the hidden truth, while others argue that the Nazi gold has already been absorbed into global financial systems, lost forever in the shadows of history. But as long as unanswered questions remain, the search for Hitler's lost gold will continue, fueled by curiosity, ambition, and the hope that one of the greatest treasures of the 20th century is still waiting to be found. Modern-day treasure hunts and discoveries. Recent efforts to recover the gold decades after the collapse of the Third Reich, treasure hunters, historians, and intelligence agencies are still searching for Hitler's lost fortune. The mystery of the missing Nazi gold has led to expeditions in remote mountain ranges, high-tech searches beneath lakes, and legal battles over secret bank accounts. Despite years of speculation, unverified claims, and even government interference, modern technology has revived the hunt for Nazi treasure like never before. With the advancement of ground-penetrating radar, sonar mapping, and drone technology, treasure hunters are scanning deep underground and beneath water bodies in search of hidden vaults, buried caches, and lost Nazi gold trains. Some expeditions have been carried out independently, while others have been backed by private investors, research institutions, and even governments hoping to uncover long-lost riches. One of the most persistent treasure hunts involves the legendary Nazi gold train, rumored to be buried in Poland near the town of Wałbrzych. In 2015, Polish explorers claimed they had discovered a hidden tunnel system using ground-penetrating radar, leading to widespread media coverage and a temporary excavation. However, despite the excitement, no gold was recovered, and the Polish government declared the site to be empty. But many believe that the truth is being suppressed, with speculation that authorities secretly removed gold and artifacts before making the announcement. The search for Hitler's missing wealth is not limited to underground tunnels. In Austria, Lake Toplitz has long been rumored to conceal Nazi gold at its depths. The lake, once used by the Nazis as a testing site for secret weapons and naval experiments, has been the subject of numerous diving expeditions. In 2020, a high-tech search was conducted, using sonar technology and deep-sea diving equipment to scan the lake bed. The results were kept confidential, but some reports suggest that large metallic objects were detected beneath layers of silt, fueling further speculation that hidden Nazi assets may still lie beneath the water. Another significant lead emerged in 2022, when a major financial scandal in Belgium reignited the debate over whether Nazi assets are still hidden in European banks. Several high-ranking financial institutions were accused of knowingly holding onto unclaimed Nazi-era deposits. The investigation uncovered evidence of missing Holocaust-era assets, but critics argue that it barely scratched the surface. If modern banks are still in possession of hidden Nazi wealth, it raises the question: how much more is out there, hidden behind legal loopholes and banking secrecy laws? How the missing gold still impacts today's politics. The disappearance of Nazi gold is not just a historical mystery. It has real-world consequences that continue to shape global politics, banking regulations, and international legal battles. For decades, Holocaust survivors and their families have fought to reclaim lost assets, many of which were seized by the Nazis and later absorbed into banking institutions. Legal battles between nations, private entities, and survivor groups have resulted in multi-billion-dollar settlements, but many argue that the true extent of the hidden wealth has never been revealed. The Swiss banking scandal of 1997, which exposed Nazi-linked accounts that had remained untouched for decades, was just one example of how missing gold and assets continue to resurface. Many researchers believe that classified banking records in multiple countries still contain traces of stolen Nazi wealth, but legal barriers and financial secrecy make full disclosure nearly impossible. The search for Nazi gold has also influenced modern banking policies and financial crime regulations. In the aftermath of the Swiss banking scandal, stricter laws on hidden accounts and international asset tracking were introduced, forcing banks to disclose previously undisclosed wartime-era accounts. However, many financial institutions continue to resist full transparency, arguing that without clear historical records, proving the origins of these assets remains difficult. Another significant issue is how governments handle discovered Nazi assets. In cases where treasure hunters or researchers stumble upon hidden caches of Nazi gold or artifacts, the question of ownership becomes complex. Should these assets be returned to the nations from which they were stolen? Should they be handed over to Holocaust survivor groups? Or should they be auctioned and used for reparations? The legal framework surrounding recovered Nazi wealth remains unclear, leading to disputes whenever new discoveries are made. If a major Nazi gold discovery were made today, it could trigger a legal and financial crisis on an international scale. Countries, banks, and institutions would likely compete for ownership, while survivor groups and historians would demand full disclosure and restitution. The The fallout could reshape international banking laws, forcing greater transparency on secret accounts and historical financial crimes. For treasure hunters, intelligence agencies, and investigative journalists, the search for Hitler's lost gold is far from over. Whether hidden deep in the Austrian Alps, buried in Polish tunnels, resting beneath frozen lakes, or locked away in Swiss vaults, the missing Nazi fortune continues to fuel speculation, controversy, and the hope that one day, the greatest lost treasure of the 20th century will finally be found. What happens if we find Hitler's lost gold? Would it be returned to the rightful owners? If Hitler's lost gold were discovered today, one of the biggest challenges would be determining who has the rightful claim to it. The sheer complexity of ownership disputes would trigger legal battles involving nations, financial institutions, Holocaust survivor groups, and even private individuals. The most legitimate claims would likely come from Holocaust survivors and their families, whose valuables were stolen and melted into Nazi gold reserves. Jewish communities across Europe suffered massive financial losses when the Nazis seized family heirlooms, jewelry, gold bars, and even personal bank deposits. If substantial portions of Nazi gold were recovered, these groups could argue that reparations should be made. Governments of occupied nations would also stake their claims. Countries like Poland, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands had their entire national reserves looted by the Nazis during World War II. The stolen gold was often transferred to Swiss banks or smuggled to hidden vaults in Austria and Germany. If such assets were recovered today, these governments could demand the return of their historical wealth. Swiss banks and other financial institutions might also become involved in legal disputes. Over the years, Swiss banks have faced accusations of holding onto Nazi gold and suppressing evidence of stolen assets. If new discoveries linked to hidden Nazi-era accounts were exposed, modern banks could be forced to reopen financial investigations and potentially release previously undisclosed assets. The question remains: who should have the final say in distributing recovered Nazi gold? Would courts rule in favor of national governments, surviving families, or banking institutions? Given the scale of the missing wealth, potentially billions of dollars, the legal battles could last years or even decades. Would it be seized by governments? The discovery of Hitler's lost gold would not just be a legal issue, it would also be a massive political and economic event. If a substantial amount of missing Nazi gold were recovered, governments would likely attempt to seize and control it. One major concern would be how such a discovery could impact global economies. Gold is a valuable financial asset, and if a massive hidden cache suddenly entered the market, it could affect gold prices worldwide. Countries with large gold reserves, such as the United States, China, and Russia, might oppose any large-scale influx of Nazi gold into the market to prevent economic instability. Governments could also use the recovered wealth for war reparations. Some historians argue that Nazi gold should be redistributed to compensate war victims, particularly Holocaust survivors and nations that suffered under German occupation. But which country or organization would oversee this redistribution? Would an international body like the United Nations take control of the gold? Or would it be distributed by individual countries, each claiming a portion based on their historical losses. Another possibility is that governments could allocate the gold toward historical research, Holocaust education programs, and reparations funds. Over the years, various compensation programs have been established for Holocaust survivors, but many claim they have never received full justice for their losses. A major discovery of Nazi gold could lead to new financial reparations, providing compensation to those whose families were directly affected by the Nazis' looting spree. However, some experts argue that governments might not be so willing to part with the gold. If billions of dollars in missing Nazi gold were suddenly under the control of a specific country, would they really return it to rightful owners? Or would they find ways to absorb it into their own national reserves? Given the secretive nature of international banking and intelligence agencies, it's entirely possible that a portion of recovered Nazi gold could quietly disappear again, just as it did after the war. Could the mystery ever be solved? The mystery of Hitler's lost gold is one of the greatest unsolved financial enigmas of the 20th century. Despite decades of investigations, treasure hunts, and declassified intelligence files, the full extent of Nazi gold's whereabouts remains unknown. One reason this mystery is so difficult to solve is the deliberate destruction of records. As Nazi officials realized that Germany was losing the war, they systematically burned documents, erased financial trails, and eliminated witnesses who might have known where the stolen wealth was hidden. Entire banking transactions were covered up, and many records that could have traced the gold's movement simply no longer exist. Even when new discoveries are made, secrecy continues to surround them. Governments, banks, and intelligence agencies often remain silent or obstruct investigations, fearing the legal and political fallout that could result from admitting they have Nazi-era assets. When Swiss banks were forced to disclose hidden Nazi accounts in 1997, it became clear that much of Hitler's fortune had remained untouched for decades, protected by financial secrecy laws. If this could happen in Switzerland, how many other banks around the world are still sitting on undisclosed Nazi wealth? Despite these challenges, hope remains that one day, the truth will emerge. Modern technology has revived treasure hunts, with ground-penetrating radar, sonar mapping, and satellite imaging providing new ways to search for hidden vaults and buried gold. As more historical documents are declassified, researchers continue to uncover new leads, suggesting that at least some of the missing gold might still be out there. But will we ever truly know the full extent of Hitler's lost fortune? Or has it already been absorbed into modern financial systems, hidden away behind layers of secrecy, untouchable by international law? One thing is certain: the legend of Nazi gold is far from over. As long as undiscovered caches, secret bank accounts, and historical cover-ups remain, the search will continue. Treasure hunters, historians, intelligence agencies, and governments alike will keep following the trail, hoping that one day, the final pieces of this decades-long mystery will finally come to light. Somewhere, hidden deep underground, locked in a secret vault, or sitting in a Swiss bank account under an unknown name, lies one of the greatest lost treasures of all time. Will it ever be found? Or will Hitler's stolen fortune remain a secret forever, buried by history itself.